Let's speak now to Kganki Matabane, who is the Chief Executive Officer of the Black Business Council, and Fanele Mondi, who's the Chief Executive Officer of Energy Intensive Users Group, EUIG. Thank you very much to both of you for joining us. Mr. Matabane, perhaps let me just start off with that point made by Peter Groenewald, the issue of private players. We have legislation, we have regulation to deal with this, and yet the President seems to be against, a break in a hard place here, because if you look at Section 30A of the National Environmental Management Act, which many have said is a get-out-of-free jail card for an energy crisis, even that has been criticized if there was a threat that the President would invoke it now to use it. Your thoughts on that?
Evening, Tsepiso and the viewers, and thank you very much for having us. I think maybe let me start with the previous speaker. I think what he said seems to be saying that only white people are on merit, which is not true. Most of the white people who were employed at ESCOM or anywhere else during apartheid, we did not qualify there. They were there only because they are white. But I'm not there. When the President said they're taking bold steps, we thought he was going to say he's removing the ESCOM board and the ESCOM CEO, but he didn't do that, because when we had a meeting with him, we agreed with him on solution number one of fixing ESCOM and improving the current and existing supply, because that is the only way where we can stop load shedding. South Africa does not have a megawatt problem. It's got a type of a megawatt problem that the President did not mention. So even if you put 10,000 or 20,000 megawatt now from solar, you're not going to stop load shedding. South Africa has got a problem of what is called the base load dispatchable capacity, and the only way to bring us there is to fix the current coal power stations that ESCOM has. But unfortunately, the current people who are at ESCOM, they failed to fix that in the past 2.5 years when the new CEO was appointed. So we don't have confidence that much is going to happen. So we are afraid that we are still going to be on this load shedding matter for a long time. I don't think the other solutions are going to solve this. So it's important that we agree this. We will work with the President. We'll also bring some black engineers who are available to assist. But we don't think the solar and wind solution is a sustainable solution. It's been proven now that we've got the additional 6,000 megawatts at ESCOM, but it's not helping us when we've got load shedding. We also welcome the President's intention of importing electricity from SADC. I think that is a base load electricity. It will help us, and it will go a long way in trying to get us to where we want to be, where we'll be able to recover as the economy and create jobs, because the biggest problem that we're having is to make sure that people are employed, the young people are employed, women are employed, and we can move away from the problem that we're sitting on, the ticking time bomb, where the majority of people are unemployed.
Let me hear from Mr. Mondi. I'll still again go back to the issue of the regulatory framework, because various international financial institutions, including our very own government, has pointed at this in terms of need for improvement. The President did touch on it, but as I said, it seems that even though when government introduces this, it seems to be at odds with some of those on the issue of implementation. So how do we achieve affordable and accessible energy with the projects that we have underway now, Mr. Mondi?
Good evening, Tsepiso, as well as to your viewers. Our view is that the president covered almost all the angles which will help us in terms of moving forward. Specifically on the issue you are asking, there is already work which is currently being done under the presidency, which the president also touched on, regarding streamlining these processes. I think there were two challenges. One is pure regulatory red tape, where things take too long. So that is being covered. There is work done at that level. The second one is what the president also spoke about, is the number of different authorizations you need at different departments with different timelines. So that will be dealt with, hopefully, through this one-stop solution, where you submit an application and then it gets processed in one place, covering all these legislative requirements. So we are quite hopeful that that will go a long way in terms of resolving the environmental authorizations and many other authorizations, by the way, which are required for these projects to be implemented.
The cost structures for independent power producers or even individual households to sell to the grid, is that clear enough? Because it's been said that an intelligent grid is not only an efficient one, but it speaks to these issues. Do you get a sense of that being fleshed out enough, that there is regulatory independence?
We think maybe let me start by saying for us as the EUIG, we had a number of these points which the president has covered around maintenance in ESCOM, around incentivizing demand-side management and installation of rooftops, as well as the additional generation through public procurement, as well as private sector, as well as the legislative framework which needed to be improved. So with regards to the rooftop, addition, we think, like the president said, it's a matter of putting up the rules, which in this case, the option he has chosen or is suggesting is that we use the feed-in tariff, which basically means that all those who support the grid will then be paid the money for the work, or rather for the energy they supply. The question around the efficiency of the grid will be covered by some of the things which the president covered. One was the need for a base load capacity to be improved, which talks to the whole coal fleet being improved in terms of performance, because that's where our key base load comes from. He talked about the need for battery storage, where he said that will be an RFP will be issued soon, as well as gas. What has not been covered, or at least I didn't hear in this presentation, was the issue of the review of the IRP. The IRP will be a base document which will assist us to fully understand how balanced our energy supply is in terms of our grid compliance and our grid needs in terms of the balance and the integrity of the grid.
Mr. Matabane, this has been said in various documents to say that there needs to be greater focus on transmission and distribution of electricity, that while we're talking about the generation, the consumption element is also being overlooked.
Yes, I think it depends on what problem we're trying to solve. So we've got the immediate problem, which is to stop load shedding, and that again, as I indicated, we need the base load. For the future, obviously, then you need the entire system being ready. For example, if there are other people who want to connect to the grid, they shouldn't be struggling. So the entire network should be made ready now. And then going back to the issue of the rooftop, I think it's important that that matter gets clarified, because when we had a meeting with the president, there was no clarity on what will that cost, what will that cost be to the end user. Because also you don't want to, when you are trying to encourage people to move away from consuming ESCOM power, to also punish them, because if you do that, then a lot of people won't be able to take up that opportunity. So it's important that as soon as possible that gets clarified before people can decide which way they are going.
Mr. Mondi, let me just come back to you to wrap up. I mean, as you said, there are myriad compartments to this whole plan. And the social compact is something that has been raised a number of times. We've heard that hydropower and geothermal could account for 80% of new power generation capacity. Do we have a plan in place how to improve accessibility, including in the jobs division?
So it goes back to what I spoke about earlier, the IRP. That's the one which will really determine what energy composition we have in the country. That process in itself is a consultative process where stakeholders have got to make their inputs. As the EUIG, our view rather is that we need to make sure that as we compile that document, we make sure that it is robust in terms of technical needs of the grid, but also in terms of the least cost. We believe that those should be the drivers. So in terms of which technology you use, that will be what determines that. As an association, we don't have any special preference for technology in terms of being selective, so to say. We welcome all of the technologies which can provide the necessary energy. The points which have been raised by my colleague here around base load are quite fundamental for energy intensive energy users. So that solution which will come from the IRP should cater for that. But it's like I'm saying, the issue is really about technical robustness and affordability of those solutions which we choose.
All right, thank you so much to you both for sharing your insights, your reactions to some of the announcements made by President Cyril Ramaphosa earlier on. Kganki Matabane is the Chief Executive Officer of the Black Business Council, and Fanele Mondi is the Chief Executive Officer of Energy Intensive Users Group, EUIG.